This rich family's list for babysitters said rules to live by. The babysitter laughed, not realizing the terrifying truth. The young parents hired her due to her excellent reputation, which had quickly spread throughout the wealthy neighborhood. Most families in the area were more affluent than hers, coming from long lines of wealth, but she was always suspicious of some of them. On the day of the job, she drove up a private driveway that she had never noticed in the neighborhood before. This was easily the most stunning house she had ever babysat at. Judging by the appearance, she was hoping to earn a good amount of money from this job. As she approached the house, she spotted a massive wooden door and knocked on it. A beautiful woman answered the door and introduced herself as Mrs. Fairchild. She then called her husband, and a very handsome man appeared with an adorable little girl. The couple appeared eager to leave, and despite their attractiveness, they seemed worn out from keeping up with their 7-year-old. Before leaving, Mr. and Mrs. Fairchild gave the babysitter several sheets of paper and stressed how important it was to follow the instructions. The babysitter assured the couple that she'd give them a look as she walked them down the driveway to their Mercedes. After saying goodbye, the babysitter quickly glanced at the instructions before folding the papers and placing them neatly back into her pockets. This is something she will soon regret. The couple's young daughter, Samantha, was very sweet and warmed up to the babysitter almost immediately, or so she thought. The two spent the next few hours playing games and watching TV. The babysitter noticed it was getting late and asked Samantha what her bedtime was. Samantha shrugged, not giving her an answer, which is when she remembered that she was given those instructions. She unfolded the papers and quickly scanned them until she came across the words, "Samantha must be in bed by 8 p.m. She checked the time to find out it was almost 7:45 p.m. "Well, it looks like it's your bedtime right now," she said, lifting Samantha off the couch so she could get her ready. Samantha brushed her teeth and tucked herself into bed. The babysitter told Samantha goodnight and was about to leave her room when Samantha said something that made her stop in her tracks. "Don't forget to lock my door before you leave," Samantha said. The babysitter stopped, turned around and looked confused. "What do you mean, don't forget to lock your door?" the babysitter asked. "Why would I need to lock your door? What if you had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night?" Samantha looked at her innocently and shrugged her shoulders again. "I don't know, but Mommy always locks the door before I go to sleep. She says she does it to protect me and herself. I don't remember what happens after I fall asleep, but Mommy says that I always try to leave my room at night, which is a bad thing." The babysitter looked dumbfounded. She didn't know what to say. "Mommy told me that she would leave instructions for you to follow, and locking my door is one of them," Samantha said. The babysitter had forgotten to read the rules. "Oh, okay, Samantha, I'll lock your door. Good night, sweetheart," she stammered. Samantha gave her a big smile and rolled over in her bed. The babysitter closed the door, then noticed that there was a latch drilled into the door frame that would allow someone to lock it from the outside. So she closed the latch and walked back downstairs so she could read the rest of Mrs. Fairchild's instructions. When she had first seen the pieces of paper, she was under the impression that they were just instructions that told her what shows Samantha was not allowed to watch or how to operate the surround sound. But after she started reading them though, she realized she was wrong. She was completely and utterly wrong. She started reading, "Hello, we are so glad that you agreed to stay the night and babysit Samantha for us. She is such an angel and I'm sure both of you will get along very well. I know that our house might seem old and scary, but don't worry, nothing bad will happen to you as long as you follow some simple instructions. Firstly, Samantha needs to be in bed, in her room, with the door locked before 8 p.m. Do not open her bedroom door after 8 p.m. I repeat, do not open Samantha's bedroom door after 8 p.m. She will try and convince you to open the door in many different ways. She will cry, scream, and threaten you until you give in. But do not listen to her. She can't hurt you as long as the door is closed." At this point, the babysitter was confused. Why would she leave her locked in there if she was screaming and crying to let her out? Something wrong was going on here, but she continued reading. "Between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m., make sure you remain in the living room with the lights turned on. Around this time of night, you may hear scratching and growling coming from Samantha's room or other parts of the house. These noises are nothing to worry about as long as you stay in the living room. Watch some TV to pass the time. After 9:30, do not venture into any dark areas of the house. We would recommend that you turn on as many lights as you can before 9:30 so you don't accidentally trap yourself. You might also happen to see a pair of yellow cat eyes looking at you through the darkness. Do not stare at them for more than 30 seconds. These rules were getting more horrible and more confusing by the moment. The babysitter started to sweat, her body feeling glued to the floor as she read over the strict but extremely terrifying rules that were put in place. police. Why has she agreed to take this job? She read on. At 10 p.m., it might begin to sound like several people are walking around in the basement downstairs. Do not worry, because as long as you stay out of the basement, they cannot get you. I know it sounds unlikely, but around this time, you may begin to feel an overwhelming urge to walk down to the basement. If this happens, go into the kitchen and drink a cold glass of milk. Drinking milk usually helps. The urge will most likely pass after about 10 minutes, but if the urge is still there after 10 minutes and you don't think that you'll be able to stop yourself from walking into the basement, then call either me or Mr. Fairchild and we'll tell you what to do. Now, this next part is very important. You will be sleeping in our guest room upstairs for the night. Before you go to bed though, make sure you leave a plate outside your bedroom door with a piece of raw steak on it, and leave a glass of milk next to the plate as well. Getting to the bottom of the paper, the final rule said, do not eat meat after 8 p.m. They might see it as a threat and will most likely attack you. P.S. Throughout the night, you might hear a dog whimpering from somewhere off in the house. We don't have a dog, so don't go looking for it. The babysitter hadn't realized what she had gotten herself into. Right as she finished reading the rules, it was 8:31, and the growling and noises had begun. It sounded like they were coming from every room in the house. The babysitter's hands were shaking as she reread the instructions, the realization of what she was dealing with finally sinking in. She was trapped in this house with something that was far from normal. Over the next few hours, things only got stranger and more terrifying. The growling turned into scratching, and sometimes she would hear what sounded like a soft, whimpering dog. But she remembered what Mrs. Fairchild's list had said. They didn't own a dog. She stayed in the living room, keeping the lights on as instructed, and waited. The urge to go down into the basement only grew stronger, but she continually fought against it, going into the kitchen and gulping down multiple glasses of milk. Around 10 p.m., she started to hear sounds of footsteps in the basement, but she didn't go down there. She stayed put, watching TV to distract herself from the cacophony. It was during one of these distractions that the babysitter noticed a different piece of paper on the coffee table, a sheet that had been sort of tucked underneath the magazine. She picked it up and read it. It was a diet plan for Samantha, written in Mrs. Fairchild's neat handwriting. Her heart skipped a beat as she read through it. It was a weekly meal plan, but it wasn't the usual stuff you'd feed a 7-year-old. It read liver on Monday, kidneys on Wednesday, and heart on Friday. It was a diet composed of people's organs. Her stomach churned as the horrifying truth hit her. Samantha wasn't just some ordinary child. She was something else. As the realization dawned on her, she heard a loud crash from upstairs. It sounded like a door being broken down. The noise was followed by a soft patting of feet on the staircase. Samantha could be heard humming a lullaby as she descended, her voice echoing through the eerily silent house. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing. She thought back to Mrs. Fairchild's instructions and her insistence that she follows them exactly, but it was too late for that now. She had made a terrible mistake. She could hear Samantha getting closer, her lullaby humming growing louder. It was then that she realized the horrifying truth. She wasn't here to babysit Samantha. She was here to feed her, and she was the meal.